The Axeman of New Orleans, jazz, murder, and a letter from hell. The night the music stopped, New Orleans. March 19th, 1919. As the sun set over the Mississippi River, something strange happened in the Crescent City. Jazz poured from every home, bar, and street corner. From the Garden District to the French Quarter, families danced, bands played, and horns blared deep into the night. Not because of celebration, not because of joy, but because of fear. They were playing for their lives. Just days earlier, the city had received a letter, written in jagged handwriting, signed by someone who called himself the Axeman of New Orleans. And in that letter, the Axeman promised one thing: I will pass over the city, and those not playing jazz will feel my wrath. It wasn't an empty threat. He'd already killed, and the city believed he'd kill again. This is the story of a killer who stalked in silence, who entered homes through locked doors, who brought an axe, and who left behind only terror, blood, and a jazz-infused mystery that still haunts New Orleans to this day. The first blow. It began on May 23rd, 1918. A quiet night in New Orleans. Joseph Maggio, a grocer, and his wife Catherine were asleep in their home on the corner of Upper Line and Magnolia Street. They never heard the killer enter. They never heard him creep into their bedroom. What happened next was brutal. The killer took a straight razor and slit both their throats. Then, as if that wasn't enough, he brought an axe down on their heads, over and over. Joseph died hours later from massive head trauma. Catherine was nearly decapitated. There were no witnesses, no fingerprints, no signs of forced entry. But there was something strange. The killer had removed a panel from the back door to get in. Quiet, clean, deliberate. The police found the bloody axe in the backyard, one that belonged to the Maggios themselves. That would become the Axeman's pattern. Use the victim's own axe. Enter without a sound, attack while they slept. And just as quickly as he came, he vanished. No one saw him. No one heard him leave. The city was horrified. Two well-known residents murdered in their bed, butchered by a man no one could describe. The press dubbed it the most savage murder in New Orleans history, but it wouldn't be the last. A killer's pattern emerges. Just a few weeks after the Maggio murders, another family was attacked. June 27th, 1918. Louis Bessumer and his mistress, Harriet Lowe, were sleeping in the quarters behind his grocery store on Dumaine Street. At dawn, a delivery boy found them, both barely alive, lying in pools of blood. They had been struck repeatedly in the head with an axe. Again, the weapon was the victim's own. Again, a panel had been removed from the back door. And again, there were no fingerprints, no clues, no signs of robbery. Harriet Lowe lingered for weeks, eventually dying from her wounds. But before she passed, she told the police something chilling. It wasn't a stranger. Louis knew who did this. Was it a lover's quarrel? Was Louis hiding something? Police weren't sure, but they were beginning to see a disturbing trend. The attacks were targeted, always at night, always couples, always Italian grocers or their families. The city began to whisper, "Is someone targeting Italians? Is this personal? Is it the Mafia?" Speculation soared. The press printed theories faster than the police could disprove them, but nothing made sense. The killer left no message, no motive, no mercy, and by the time the next attack came, New Orleans was no longer just scared, it was paralyzed. Terror takes root. By the end of the summer in 1918, the city of New Orleans had changed. Grocery stores started closing earlier. People installed locks, bars, and traps on their windows. Families slept in shifts. One person always awake, always listening. And then, on August 5th, the Axeman struck again. This time, the victim was Anna Schneider. She was 8 months pregnant. Her husband came home to find her bleeding from deep gashes on her head, but miraculously alive. The room was in chaos. Furniture overturned. Blood pooled on the floor, but nothing was stolen. And, once again, the weapon was a nearby axe. Anna survived, and days later gave birth to a healthy baby girl. But she had no memory of the attack, only the darkness and the pain. 2 days later, Joseph Romano, an elderly grocer, was attacked in his own bed. His nieces heard a commotion, rushed into the room, found him bloody, conscious, but slipping fast. He died 2 days later. They described the attacker as a large man, dark-dressed, wearing a slouched hat. It was the first and only physical description police ever got. The city was in a full panic now. Newspapers ran headlines like, "Murderer wields axe again. City held hostage by phantom fiend." Everyone had a theory, but no one had answers. The killer wasn't just attacking, he was invading, breaking into homes, sliding through shadows, turning a city of jazz into a city of fear. The Letter from Hell. March 13th, 1919. A letter appeared in the editorial offices of the Times-Picayune, New Orleans' leading newspaper. It was unsigned, handwritten in erratic script, and full of twisted confidence. The author claimed to be the Axeman, and what he wrote would shake the city to its core. "They have never caught me, and they never will. I am not a human being, but a spirit and a demon from the hottest hell." He taunted the police, mocked the public, and then came the threat. "At 12:15 a.m., March 19th, I will pass over New Orleans. I will spare those playing jazz." The city had 6 days to prepare, not for a crime, but for a night of judgment, with music as protection. And when that night came, New Orleans answered. From uptown mansions to downtown dives, jazz rang out in every corner. Amateur bands played on porches. Families danced in candlelight. Bars stayed open late. Churches held jazz vigils. It was a surreal scene, one of fear and rhythm, of survival and sound. And that night, no one died. But the question lingered. Did the letter really come from the killer? Or was it a hoax? A cruel trick by someone watching the city spiral into hysteria? Either way, the damage was done. The Axeman had become more than a killer. He was now a phantom legend. Blood on the walls, music in the air. The jazz night came and went. New Orleans exhaled, but the relief didn't last long. August 10th, 1919, the Axeman returned. Steve Boca, another grocer, was attacked in his home. He survived, staggering to a neighbor's house with blood pouring from his head. He couldn't remember the assault, but the pattern was familiar. Axe, back door, no robbery. Then, 2 weeks later, Sarah Lauman, another young woman, was found unconscious in her bed, missing teeth, head injuries, and, again, an axe nearby. She too survived, but had no memory of the attack. And then, the final blow. October 27th, 1919, the Cordemelia family. They lived in Gretna, across the river from New Orleans. One night, the Axeman broke in and attacked all three. Charles, the father, injured. Rose, the mother, severely beaten. Mary, their 2-year-old daughter, killed. The smallest victim yet. Rose survived and accused a rival grocer and his son, but later recanted, saying she was pressured to lie. It didn't matter. The fear had peaked. The legend was complete. The Axeman had come, killed, written his threats, and vanished. Who was the Axeman? The murders stopped after October 1919. No more letters. No more bodies. Just silence. The city healed. Slowly. But the questions never went away. Who was the Axeman? Theories abound. Some say it was a madman, suffering from violent delusions. Others believe it was a serial killer with a fixation on jazz and control. One theory suggests he was a former butcher, someone skilled with blades. Another claims it was a police officer, using inside knowledge to evade capture. And then there's the theory that chills the most, that the Axeman wasn't a man at all, but an idea, a story that gripped a city and gave rise to copycats, that perhaps more than one person picked up the axe. No one was ever arrested, no one was charged, and the Axeman of New Orleans faded into history, a shadow behind the gas lamps and trumpets. But his legacy lives on, in jazz songs, in ghost tours, in true crime podcasts. He was a killer, a storyteller, and perhaps the first to understand the power of fear, amplified by media, music, and myth.
Subscribe for more chilling mysteries. Thanks for being here. See you in the next time.